I'd like to call the April 24th, 2019 meeting of the Willits City Council. And let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Dolores.
Councilmember Connie.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Present.
Strong. Here. Stranske.
Yes.
And Mayor Gonzalez.
Here. All right, public communication. The council welcomes participation in its meetings. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person so that everyone may be given an opportunity to be heard. To expedite matters and avoid repetition whenever any group of persons wishes to address the council on the same subject matter, the mayor may request that a spokesperson be chosen by the group. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the city council which are not on the posted agenda. Public criticism of the city council, commissions, boards, and agencies will not be prohibited. No action shall be taken as it's not agendized. So does anybody from the public want to speak to something not on tonight's agenda? Not on tonight's agenda.
It's in addition to...
They have a person raise their hand back in the
Okay.
back.
Okay, so why don't you go up, again, 3 minutes. And then behind you, somebody else. And I will cut you off at the 3-minute mark, okay?
My name is Randy Dalton. I don't know if it's on or not. It doesn't amplify in the room.
Yeah.
It's for the recording. I've got a big voice anyway. My name is Randy Dalton, and I've been a resident of Mendocino County all my life, born and raised, and I'm very much concerned about the pavement of the building of flower pots and the trees that were cut down in the middle of Highway 101. And I'm concerned about how or when is that going to be finished. The irrigation of anything that's planted, to jobs. We need jobs for our local people. I think it's imperative that we can't plant in wood chips, and we need soils. I went to the Spare Time Supply gathering this last weekend on 420, and they had lots and lots of locally produced soils and amendments, and I'd like to see something done to finish. Before you go on to a new project, you have to finish at Montessori school, where my kids went. Before you start a new project, you have to finish what you've already got going. And I don't know where the city council is with Caltrans on that project of the 101 main corridor, but I would like to see local people. There's a garden project through NCO that's being proposed. The schools, a lot of the merchants, we're looking like a ghost town to me compared to, we don't have the Paradise Cafe, we don't have the Adams Restaurant, the Rexall, all the businesses that are around where I live, which is a half block from the Mariposa Market. You know, many of the merchants in town are no longer in business. Part of it's because of the construction, part of it's because there's no parking. You know, there's a lot that needs to be dealt with, and I would like to recommend tonight to you that we have workshops, that we have a one-day planning, land use planning workshop where the community is invited to come to participate in the design and building as has been done prior. You know, that we have a one-day or, you know, 2 days, but that there be some kind of an ad hoc committee, you know, enabling people like me who are not always able to come. It's rare for me now. But I'm making the effort because I'm very much concerned about the soils and the drainage and the flooding and the traffic. You know, land use, when I grew up in Contra Costa County, watched Danville go from 500 to 5,000. You know, and I've lived in Laytonville where it's 1,000 people. And I know that it's inevitable that we're going to have growth, but there are limits to growth. And the soil integrity and the water integrity means Mother Nature will bat first, she always bats last. And we have to take into consideration what is happening with our community. And I would like to preserve and protect our rural nature, and I would like to be able to have people in the communities. I got the map for the proposals, and they didn't even have streets named on the maps. You know, they have a map showing where these streets are going to be, you know, improved, but there was nothing. There were no names, and so you know, there's more. There's more than
Dolores?
3 minutes. Are we at 3 minutes yet? I mean, I can.
We're at 3 minutes, so,
Okay.
sorry.
There's a lot more than I can carry, but I'd like to see
All right.
workshops. And I'd like to see community involvement.
Ma'am, if you could come to the podium and state your name.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Davenson. I'm here tonight to introduce the climate reality slideshow presented by Doug Nunn. The 2007 Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to former Vice President Al Gore and the intergovernmental panel of scientists and educators who founded the Climate Reality Project. This organization trained more than 17,000 presenters with the goal of informing the public about the danger of human-caused climate change and remedy needed to overcome it. Last summer, Doug Nunn, a retired teacher from Albion, was one of over 2,200 climate reality trainees who gathered in Los Angeles. Doug is now working tirelessly to educate citizens groups about the reality of climate change. Over the last few weeks, he made a presentation at the Ukiah and the Fort Bragg City Council, as well as several other venues. The climate reality slideshow graphically illustrated why and how our environment is heating up and what we can do about it. The main question asked are, must we change? Can we change? And will we change? Initially, the presentation explained how the atmosphere works, how we have to pollute it since Industrial Revolution, and the rapid change in climate that resulted over the last 40 years. Evidence of increasing climate disruption are unfolding in front of our eyes. As we know from experience here in Mendocino County, unpredictable and unprecedented weather patterns, floods, drought, and fast-moving wildfires has become the new normal. Doug showed how these negative effects associated with the use of fossil fuel are significantly mitigated and decreased by phenomenal expansion of solar and wind power source of energy. In fact, some of...
Ma'am, you're out of time. I'm sorry. All right, I need, anybody else would like to speak?
Okay.
Now we have a full agenda.
One more
No.
sentence?
It's going to be one more sentence, and I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, so please put Doug Nunn's slideshow and the presentation on the City Council agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much,
for
ma'am.
taking time to hear me out.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would really like to have Doug Nunn do a presentation for City Council. I know he's available on May 22nd. I think he's also going to be presenting to the high school at that time. It works for his schedule, and he can keep a pretty tight form of it, a presentation that's within our time limits, because I think it would just be a wonderful opportunity for us at the council and also invite the public to learn more about this issue and what we locally are able to do. He's been doing this for all the other jurisdictions, and his show is apparently very powerful and well received. So what would we need to do to put it on the May 22nd?
And I guess my other question is, we're getting close to budget, so what does our schedule look like?
Our budget workshop is on May 9th. I can't tell you offhand what May 22nd will bring, but according to our rules, I guess it takes 2 council members to put something on the agenda.
Okay. Do I have
I'll
anybody?
second Madge's motion.
Okay. So, all right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to anything else on the agenda, or not on the agenda, before we move on? Okay. Now we'll go to public matters. Presentation of a proclamation for the month of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Apparently we have representatives of CASA here.
We do.
All right,
And I have a packet for each of you.
all right. I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation, and then Councilmember Connie will present it. Proclamation of the City Council recognizing the month of April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the safety of Willits children is of utmost importance for the well-being of families in our community, whereas child abuse is considered to be one of our nation's most serious public health and social problems. It has been proven there is a link between abuse and neglect of children, as well as being the cause for a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders. And whereas the majority of child abuse cases develop from situations and conditions that are preventable when a community is supportive, active, and engaged. And whereas individuals, businesses, schools, faith-based, and community organizations must make children a top priority and take action to support the physical, social, emotional, and educational development of all children. And whereas Child Abuse Prevention Month is a time to acknowledge the importance of families, communities working together to prevent child abuse and neglect, and to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families. Therefore, I, Gerardo Gonzalez, Mayor of the City of Willits, along with Vice-Mayor Larry Stranske, Councilmembers Matt Strong, Sabrina Rodriguez, Greta Connie, hereby proclaim April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Greta, you can present. Greta brought this forward today, so I...
So there's a number of us here from many stakeholders, because child abuse is a community effort. It is not just an individual department. So we have many people from your Health and Human Services Agency. This is Gina Connor, who is the Deputy Director. And my name is Sharon Hildebrand. I'm the Director of CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. We are a nonprofit, and we serve Lake and Mendocino counties. We teach community volunteers who then advocate within the courts for our foster youth. We also have a representative from Redwood Community Services here who serves both Lake and Mendocino County. So I didn't know if we had an opportunity, and we hope not within the 3 minutes, just to quickly...
I'll let you...
Oh, thank you.
Within the 3 minutes.
In the 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
So the packets that we've given you include a lot of statistics, and it's apropos that you're coming up on budgeting season, in that what the packets speak to is the cost of child abuse. And you're going to have a document that talks about how much does child abuse cost our country, and specifically the state of California. We actually have an updated cost to Mendocino County coming in May. Statistics lag behind. So $19 billion in 2017 was the cost of child abuse in the state of California. And also in the packet, it talks and speaks to the resiliency of Mendocino County. We have some work to do. And so the children and the families that we serve in Mendocino County are often 2 to 3 times the statistical rates of children in California. We have a high rate of substantiated child abuse in Mendocino County. We have a high rate of what's called adverse childhood experiences. And what those adverse childhood experiences in, I've given you a 101 in your packet, in the respect that our children seem to have a 30% higher rate of 2 or more adverse childhood experiences. And those adverse childhood experiences are directly measured, and there has been scientific research to the effect of the more adverse childhood experiences you have, the more it's going to cost you as an adult to either medically support somebody who had increased trauma in their young life. It could be through the prison systems. It could be that they're not working, so they're going to need services that are going to cost the community money. So when you are working on your budgeting, we ask that you look at and always include children and how are families and children in your communities, because it's a prevention opportunity. If we prevent adverse childhood experiences on the front end, it will save you money on the tail end. There's also information, if you want more information, there's lots of links in there, and you can also give us a call. We're happy to come and talk to anybody about. I wish I could say this is our favorite subject, but it's a subject that's often cloaked in confidentiality. And we need you to know that it is a challenge in Mendocino County, and we need your help in order to build programs to support children and families so that they grow up and be healthy, and they can give back to our communities in the end.
Thank you. Just really quick, Gina Connor, Family and Children's Services Deputy Director with Health and Human Services. Thank you for taking the time to recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. We partner with many agencies, foster parents, foster adoptive parents, law enforcement, and I have many of my team members here tonight who work in the Willits office, and these are the members of my staff that you and your community members interact with on a daily basis. So thank you for taking the time. What do I do?
Well,
This before.
the folks from CASA, or I think that's what we call, they'd like to come forward and accept the proclamation.
Does somebody have a phone? Does somebody have a phone?
Turned off, but take pictures.
Thank you very much for all the work that you do.
Thank you. So although we recognize it in April, every day is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So thank you for sponsoring this proclamation.
And thank you for the work you guys do, all of you.
Before we move on, I see there's lots of individuals in the audience who work diligently day and night. I know personally what they give up of themselves for their families, and even though they weren't up here at the podium, would you honor us by standing just so that we can recognize you?
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right. And now, presentation of proclamation honoring Debbie Tonelli for 35 years of service to the Willits Police Department. Our city manager wanted to.
Sure. So, today, April 24th, picture yourself in 1984. It was a Tuesday. The president was Ronald Reagan. In that special week of April, people in the United States were listening to Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now by Phil Collins. In the United Kingdom, they were listening to Hello by Lionel Richie. 16 Candles, directed by John Hughes, was the top movie in 1984 at this time, while Past Imperfect by Joan Collins was one of the best-selling books. On TV, people were watching 6 Centuries of Verse, and if you liked video games, you were probably playing Great Swordsman. Locally, near Highway 20, 6 gunmen, however, were staging a daring midday robbery of a Brinks armored car today, shooting out the vehicle's tires and windows to stop it on a 4-lane highway and escaping with bags of loot. I don't know how many of you remembered that. However, in Willits, California, on April 24th, in 1984, Debbie Tonelli started her long, illustrious career as a dispatcher here in the city of Willits. And today we are here to honor her for her 35th anniversary. And I'm going to give it back to our mayor and former police chief to talk to us more about Debbie Tonelli.
So earlier, we did a little luncheon for Debbie, and then there were some speeches there, but today I'm here to issue this proclamation of the Willits City Council recognizing Debbie Tonelli on her 35th service anniversary. She outdid me. I only did just a little over 30 years, so. Whereas in April of 1984, Debbie Tonelli embarked upon what would become a long and distinguished career as a dispatcher for the city of Willits. And whereas through her work as a conscientious and dedicated employee, she has risen to the rank of dispatch center supervisor. And whereas through the many police chiefs Debbie has worked under in her career, she continues to be recognized as the rock, as she is not only the foundation, but the rock that holds the department together. And whereas during her long tenure, Debbie has demonstrated her deep commitment to her hometown throughout her career, and we give special appreciation for her conscientious efforts during the storms, fires, and maintaining services to the city's residents. And whereas Debbie celebrates 35 years of serving the citizens of Willits, and she has earned the distinction of being one of the longest-serving dispatchers in the state of California. And whereas Debbie has the very highest caliber of work ethic, and her years of service have been marked by exemplary dedication to the best interest of our community. Now therefore, I, Gerardo Gonzalez, Mayor of the City of Willits, along with Vice Mayor Larry Stranske, Council Members Matt Strong, Sabrina Rodriguez, Greta Connie, do hereby commend Debbie Tonelli for her many years of service to the City of Willits, extend our collective heartfelt appreciation and gratitude for her dedication to the safety and well-being of our community, and urge all citizens of Willits to join me in congratulating and celebrating Debbie and wish her all the success in the many years to come. Debbie trained me as a dispatcher many years ago.
I threw it across the room and that.
Karen wanted me to give the same speech that I gave at my luncheon today. This was actually written for my officers and my fire guys, but Karen thought it was appropriate, so bear with me. I can't see without my glasses. I titled it, I Listen and I Hear You. These words, those are the words I listen and I hear you. Throughout my 35 years as a dispatcher, those words have echoed through my mind countless times. When I listen to a caller and hear him trying not to cry while telling me his wife of 50 years just died and he didn't know what to do, in that moment my heart breaks for him. And I listen and I hear you. I have a child on the phone. He is alone. He doesn't know where his parents are, and he's afraid. I reach out with my voice to reassure him he did the right thing by calling the police, and I tell him we'll find his mommy and daddy. I listen and I hear you. I listen to the silence of an open line, knowing that the person on the other end is pleading for help and cannot speak for fear of being discovered by the monster waiting to hurt her. I tell her units are on the way, knowing she is terrified and she's willing us to come faster. I listen and I hear you. When I hear the call over the radio from one of my officers and his voice is stressed, he doesn't know it yet, but I've already sent an additional unit, plus more, because I listen and I hear you. Or I have officers' wives call. Her voice is wavering because she's scared. Her husband is late getting home and she's afraid to ask because she can't help herself from calling just to make sure. I always tell her no news is good news, and she laughs a little nervously, and I reassure her he's fine. I listen and I hear you. There have been times when I hear more than I want and times I don't hear enough, but I always listen because I never know when the moment will come and the person's life may depend on me, just me and me alone. Me to be the voice that keeps the calm and the voice that gives their precious gift of hope. Hope that they will survive this moment and they are not alone, because I listen and I hear you. They say dispatchers are the unsung heroes of law enforcement, and at times I believe it to be true. But the heroes for me are my officers I've worked with over the years. I'm proud of each and every one of them, some of which have grown up before my very eyes, but all have grown in my heart. For all, as you all know now, is because I listen and I hear you.
Thank you, Debbie. All right.
Well, one of the things she said just now is that people's lives depend on you and the other dispatchers, and we really appreciate the job you do.
Great group of dispatchers. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you.
All right. So now, item 3C, presentation by PG&E regarding planned power outages. And so first of all, folks, what's going to happen is PG&E is going to present, and I think they have a PowerPoint up here, and then I'm going to let them take questions, and I want to make sure that everybody is respectful and on point, and they're coming here to give us an update. It was all of us collectively, when Stephanie brought this to us, that we wanted to make sure that our public is well prepared for any planned power outages that may happen. A prepared public is ready to deal with those challenges, and I know that this has become the new normal for us, and I hope that working with PG&E and our public safety folks, that the community can get prepared, and so I'll let you take it away. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to get in the audience so that I'm not in the way of your PowerPoint.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for that extra time so I could not be prompt anymore. That was beautiful. So my name is Brian Botarian with PG&E's Government Relations team. I'm working with the team that is working on the Public Safety Power Shutoff program, and specifically our coordination with local governments. And so I know on the agenda, it says we'll just be discussing the Public Safety Power Shutoff, but that is really one tool in the toolbox that we're using to make the system safer and work with you all collaboratively. So I want to cover kind of the whole program because a lot of this work, frankly, is impactful to the community as well and requires close coordination with you all. So just want to thank you for having us here today and in advance for the continued dialogue. So this community wildfire safety program, we did have it in effect last year. We've enhanced and improved it. And I know you're seeing a lot of our folks out in the community already doing some of this work. It really falls into three buckets. Real-time monitoring intelligence, this is really the situational awareness. The closer you can get to what the conditions are on the ground, the better we can respond and prevent. So we've stood up a wildfire safety operations center in San Francisco that operates 24 hours a day during wildfire season. We're expanding our network of weather stations. As everybody knows, we're full of microclimates here. The more granular you can get and isolate where the dangerous conditions are, the better we can operate. And we're also supporting the installation of new high-definition fire cameras in high fire threat areas across our service territory. The second bucket is more of your short-term measures. Vegetation management obviously is a big one. Trees impacting lines and high wind events is a major issue, so we're stepping up our vegetation management. We're conducting accelerated safety inspections of our system in high fire threat areas. And then the last two there is basically changing how we manage our system. So disabling devices called reclosers that I'll get into later, and then of course the public safety power shutoff as a last resort in extreme conditions. And then the third bucket is really your longer term measures, your system hardening, stronger, more resilient poles, tree wire, modernizing and upgrading our infrastructure, developing what we call resilience zones, which I'll get into later as well. So that's kind of your overview of the whole program. And when I'm talking about high fire threat areas, this is the map I'm referring to. This is a map that was developed by CAL FIRE and the California Public Utilities Commission, which is our regulator, that really looks at fire threat generally, but also in relation to utility infrastructure. So it differs slightly from your CAL FIRE maps in that if there's no utility infrastructure out there, it doesn't register on the map. So you need people, you need equipment, and you need the conditions. Question?
Is the tier 2 only that darker yellow, not the other sort of grayish?
Yeah, so tier 2 is that gold color. That's elevated risk, and tier 3 is extreme. So that's the highest on the map.
I think she's asking about this, which is sort of medium gold.
That's tier 2.
So all of this is tier 2.
Oh, okay, that was my question. So everything, both this color and this are tier 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So it probably would surprise no one in the room that you're kind of surrounded on all sides by tier 2 and tier 3 area, which will inform a lot of this work. So you already are seeing a lot of us, and you'll be seeing a lot more because we're focusing our efforts in these areas. You're not alone, by the way. In the North Bay and North Coast, pretty much all elevated terrain is either tier 2 or tier 3, just with the fuels and the conditions that we've been seeing. So this is the Wildfire Safety Operations Center. It is staffed 24/7 with meteorologists, electric operations experts, former fire and emergency personnel. It's our eyes and ears, not only for conditions that might endanger the system, but also in a new fire start. This is our dispatch center. They detect a new fire start when it comes through the radio, and they mobilize our personnel as well to get to the scene to make our equipment safe for firefighting efforts as well. Installing 1,300 new weather stations by 2022 is our goal system-wide. We're at 400 now. 16 of those have been installed in Mendocino County. Those are all publicly available. That website up there is where you can see all the weather stations, ours as well as NOAA's, and it goes into the hive mind to increase situational awareness of the weather. And then supporting the installation of 600 high-definition cameras by 2022 is our goal. Those are also publicly available at alertwildfire.org, and those are monitored not only by our personnel, but of course, emergency personnel as well. Moving into the shorter-term measures, enhanced vegetation management. So we are going, meeting and exceeding state regulations for keeping trees and branches away from the lines. This diagram is a little difficult to make out, but the way the regulations are written now is we're required to maintain in high fire threat areas a 4-foot radial clearance at all times around our lines. So that's those small circles around the conductors there. To account for tree growth, the recommendation is we cut to 12 feet around the lines. So at the time of the prune, that's when you get that 12-foot radial clearance. And we're also looking to address overhanging limbs and branches. So that's the kind of tower upwards there, over the lines as well. And in addition, we analyze every time a tree fails into our line. Our team analyzes the species, conditions, etc. And we've identified 10 high-risk species that even when healthy have a higher instance of failing into power lines. And so with property owner cooperation, when we can, we are going outside of our boundaries there to remove those 10 species of trees that have the potential to fall into the lines as well. So if you live in a Tier 2 and Tier 3, particularly a Tier 3, you'll probably have a knock on your door, or a door hanger if you haven't already, from our inspectors who are going around prescribing this work. And this is a several-year project. We do have annual, what's called routine maintenance, that if you have our lines on your property, you see us every year doing the radial clearance. This enhanced program is a several-year project that will be coming through. Inspections of the system. In Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas, we are inspecting our entire system. We're using drones, we're using infrared, we're climbing poles, we're using helicopters. We try to give notice when we use helicopters because I know that can be disruptive. But it's basically 5 years of inspections we are getting through in the next few months here. So we've mobilized hundreds, if not thousands, of personnel from all over the country. We have a lot of contractors working right now. So be aware, they should all have identification of what they're doing and who they're working for. But there's from as far away as Alabama. So you can't find a line crew in the country right now. They're all here. So when we find things that are an immediate safety threat, we are fixing them immediately. In some cases, this will result in needing to de-energize your line to do the work. We're trying to bundle the work as much as we can to make it as the least disruptive that we can. Excuse me. This is a little more on the inspections. I said all that already, so I'll skip through. I said this too. So this is, you've got your immediate safety risks that are fixed immediately. Everything else we'll do in the coming months. It's everything from replacing the high voltage signs to up to replacing entire poles and conductor. System hardening and resiliency, this is your longer term measures. So we have 7,100 line miles just in the Tier 3 areas in our service territory. So every inch of those lines is getting a hardening prescription. So depending on where it is, that can be steel poles instead of wood, covered wire, targeted undergrounding, new equipment to just newer standards. We're also piloting new resilience zones. These are kind of areas that allow us to continue to provide electricity in the case of an outage to kind of critical facilities like a downtown, a gas station, a market, a fire station, that kind of thing. So we're looking at the grid and looking at communities where it would make sense. There's no way, Willits is a candidate certainly, where you can't really bring power into this town without going through a Tier 2 and Tier 3. So during a PSPS, the idea is we can roll a generator to this planned interconnection hub, plug it in, and keep some critical facilities hot during the public safety power shutoff event. So additionally, this is more of the how we operate our system. So there are these devices called reclosers, which are automatic devices that, I don't know if you've experienced an outage lately that was maybe 10 seconds long, the power went out and it came on, or you got a little flicker and it came on. Reclosers are devices that when something hits the line, usually 70% of the time when something hits the line, it just bounces off. It's a tree branch, it's a squirrel, it's a wild turkey, whatever. These devices open up and they test back in to see if the line is okay, and if there's no more hazard, it closes back in and restores your power. So this has greatly increased reliability over the years. There have been fewer outages and fewer outage minutes. However, in the wrong conditions, in a high fire danger day, a red flag day, if there's a wire on the ground and these devices operate, you can have an ignition. So we have disabled all of these. We have manual and automatic ones. The automatic ones we disable on a red flag day. The manual ones we have taken out of service for the entirety of fire season. How this would affect you potentially is now when there is an outage like that, if a branch has bounced off the wire, we have to send somebody out to look at it to make sure it's okay before we can restore the power. So this results in potentially longer outages when these devices are disabled. Public safety power shutoffs. So in our Wildfire Safety Operations Center, these are all the conditions we are evaluating 7 to 10 days out for a potential public safety power shutoff. Red flag warning, low humidity, the condition of the fuel on the ground, moisture content, on the ground observations from our troublemen out in the field, and then the big one, of course, is wind speed. So generally, sustained winds above 25 miles an hour, gusts over 45 is when you really start to get the conditions where trees can fail, things can fly into the lines. We've seen tarps, we've seen kites, and when it gets to that point in the wrong conditions, the last resort, the only thing you can do is to turn the power off proactively. So that is what this program covers. And this is the statewide look at that map with Tier 2 and Tier 3. So last year, this program was only in Tier 3 areas, so lines running through Tier 3, distribution level lines, so under 60 kV. So if you were in a Tier 3 area or served by a line that goes through a Tier 3 area, if the conditions were met the criteria, the power was turned off. We had one of these events last year. 60,000 customers were de-energized. The closest to here was in much of Lake County. We had 12,000 customers in Lake County that were out. This year, the program has been expanded to include distribution in Tier 2 and Tier 3. So you can see the expansion there, as well as transmission lines. So transmission lines are those steel towers or the really high voltage lines. Those are the lines that deliver the power into the community from outside. Here it's pretty much the geysers. So in certain conditions when those lines could be de-energized, you can see much broader impacts potentially. So we are telling all 5 million of our customers to be prepared because you may potentially have one of these outages happen depending on conditions. Even if you live in a Tier 1 area, you've got a concrete jungle, if the lines that serve you, if the lines that bring power to you run through these areas in the right conditions, you could be affected as well. So how are we going to tell you about this? Notification. So I wanted to note here that we're working very closely with Cal OES, Cal Fire, and the other California utilities on a statewide communications campaign to make sure all Californians are prepared in the event of one of these outages. We're going to be able to share more information in early May on these efforts. So you're going to see a very broad campaign for awareness here, and you'll continually hear from us. So the notifications, I would say first and foremost, if you leave here with nothing else, make sure we have your updated contact information. We can text you, we can email you, we can call you, but if we don't have your preferred mode of communication, we can't reach you. So go to our website, pgne.com, and make sure if there's a link later on in this presentation, and make sure we have your updated contact information. So when we can, so last year, weather obviously is dynamic. The time we did this last year, we got about 30 hours prior notice for the first notification. It was a north wind event that escalated, I think it was on a Saturday, to the point where this was needing to happen, and we got about 30 hours out with the notifications. But our goal is to, 48 hours before the power is turned off, to send our first notification. You are potentially in scope. Please get ready. 24 hours out, you would get another one, and then another notification just before electricity is turned off. A difference this year on our website is when this 48-hour period begins, you will be able to go to our website and enter your address as well to see if you will be in scope for this potential event. And then during the outage, you will continue to get notifications until you are restored. And of course, up here, city, county, agencies, first responders, our first calls are to you. So Cal OES, CPUC, CAL FIRE, and our local OES teams and local dispatch will get the first notifications before the customer notifications go out. So a public safety power shutoff outage is a little different than your normal storm outage where it's raining, a tree falls in the line, we go fix it, and we turn you back on. There are a lot more steps to a public safety power shutoff that kind of increase the duration, potentially, of the outages. So the wind blows, we have a 12 to 24-hour wind event usually. Once the weather is clear, our teams have to patrol and inspect every inch of the line. The last thing we want is to turn the power off and then re-energize it when there's a wire on the ground and start a fire. That's the whole point of this program is to not start fires. So we have to make sure that the system is safe before we re-energize. So we have to patrol every inch of the line that has been de-energized. If we find damage, and in many cases we will, we'll need to repair it, obviously, and isolate the line in order to do so. And then once it is safe, a call is put into our operations control center, and the power is restored. And then you are notified when your power is back. In case you have left, you can come back. How we restore, it's called step restoration. So basically the first step, if transmission is involved, is to restore those transmission lines. The good news with that is you can usually patrol those with helicopters. They're usually higher, they're still towers, you can see them easily. Getting the transmission up is the first job. Then you re-energize your substations. Your substation here in town, I think, is the south side of town. Once your substation is re-energized, then you can work from the substation out. So it won't be everybody's out for 48 hours. It'll be, in phases. The longest duration outages will occur if you're kind of at the end of your circuit, because we have to step out too. So given the 12 to 24 hours for the weather event, our internal goal is to complete the re-energization in 24 to 48 hours. So we're asking everyone to prepare for a potential 72-hour or even more event outage. Last year, just for context, last year we got all our customers back in 30 hours after the weather had subsided. It was an overnight north wind event, and then 24 hours, and then kind of early the next morning we got our last customers back. But the majority were back within 24 hours once we started patrolling. So, as I mentioned, we're doing that statewide campaign in coordination with CPUC, CAL FIRE, and Cal OES. We'll also be reaching out to you all. You'll get a letter, you'll get social media, you'll get calls. We're of course partnering with our local communities to help get the word out as well. Our medical baseline customers, these are folks that have a special electric rate because they have medical devices that rely on power. So if you're dependent on power, we know where you are if you're on this program. We're doing personal outreach to those folks ahead of time to make sure they have a plan and they're prepared. And then during an event, we are making personal phone calls, welfare checks to make sure you're okay. If we do not hear from you, we will be rolling personnel to the doorstep to knock to get a confirmation that you're okay and you have a plan. And this is the website where you can learn more about this program as well as update your contact information, pge.com/wildfires. Please go. And that's enough talking for me. I just want to hear your questions and feedback and just really appreciate the time.
So do you have, as part of your outreach recommendations, we have our business community. I know Lake County's, I think it was, wasn't St. Helena, but one of those.
Calistoga.
Thank you very much. There was a lot of spoilage in a lot of the businesses there, and so is there some advice you could give some of these businesses ahead of time so that they can prepare for this? What hopefully will just be a 30-hour event like you did before, but the event, it is a 72-hour event. I'm concerned because obviously it affects our food supply locally, and then the other one is I know most cell towers have battery backups, but during the fire event when we lost our cell tower south of town, it pretty much killed communication because most everybody now has cell as opposed to landlines. So could you address those two concerns?
Sure, I'll take the latter one first. We have a team working directly with all the telecom companies, wireless and wired, to address this issue. The main theme for everything is be prepared and have a plan. I'd say the Calistoga issue last year was really, they weren't able to prepare and have a plan because they had an issue where their whole substation went out. They weren't properly notified and they weren't able to prepare.
Okay.
That was an error on our part. And one of the, we're a company that has spent 100 years trying to keep the lights on. And so last year was our first attempt at turning them off on purpose. And there were some hiccups that we've learned from and we're working through. So that's why this year we're telling everybody, be prepared for a 48-hour outage potentially. An earthquake could happen at any time. Being prepared is a good policy no matter what, whether PSPS or no. So we're hoping that this initiative will help increase preparedness statewide.
Obviously here we have the hospital, which I believe they have some sort of generator in place, but we have some local care homes. And I think our high school in the past has served as kind of an evac center, especially during the fires. So places like that, making sure that they have some sort of power. It's hard to send our residents in the event of an emergency somewhere when there's no power. So those sort of concerns. So that's why we really wanted the word out. So
absolutely, that's one of the things we're looking at is how can we have hubs and communities where we can energize it. That's all under development.
And then I think we were talking about our local businesses. Do you have some sort of kit or some sort of handouts for them that they should be looking at, or just some of them?
All that collateral is in development right now with that statewide, as part of that statewide effort.
All right.
But yes, businesses should certainly be prepared. These tend to happen, as we've noticed, October, November timeframe is when we get Santa Ana winds now apparently, and that's when they tend to happen, we're noticing. So I know that's a very impactful time of year in this part of the world, and for tourism and agriculture and harvest and everything. So it's something that we need to prepare for.
Up here, questions?
I think our fire chief wanted to speak as well.
Brian, could you turn back to the original Tier 2, Tier 3 map at the very beginning?
Statewide or local?
Local. So I have a question about the blank area there we see there, just for clarity. That's looks like a typical CAL FIRE map where they've taken the local response area and cut it out of the map. The darker colored yellow is what they would consider to be a moderate LRA fire safety zone. The areas that are blank where you're seeing the land, is that still going to be considered Tier 2, or has that not been evaluated? Because it's using the same distribution system that we would see in the other Tier 2 portion.
So this is an important point to note. So this area, all of this area is not in Tier 2 or 3, but is very likely served by lines running through Tier 2 and Tier 3, right?
Almost, yeah.
So I mean, what we saw, you mentioned Calistoga, going back to that example, that was downtown. There was no forest land up there. Calistoga map looks exactly like this, except Tier 1 kind of extends to the south. They're surrounded on all sides by Tier 3 as well. So all the lines going into town had to be de-energized, and so all of these folks, even though they don't live in a Tier 2 or Tier 3, were affected.
So areas, is that saying that areas that are considered to be local response area, once it gets out of CAL FIRE, become Tier 1?
No, there are local response areas that are included in the map.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That said, if your department wasn't consulted when they were making the map, I would urge you to contact your colleagues at CAL FIRE and see what you can do if you disagree with some of your area in here.
Is that a CAL FIRE map?
Yes.
Okay.
It was developed with CAL FIRE and the CPC.
I guess the reason why that triggers, just for information, the gold-colored areas that you see up there, those are consistent, fairly consistent, what have been designated as moderate LRA fire safety zones. And everything outside of that that's not considered moderate fire safety zones is kind of not evaluated. Therefore, it appears that, and the valley floor is what we consider local response area. So it's almost like that piece of the puzzle's been pulled out of the mapping and just considered Tier 1. And I was just curious, because it could easily be affected if any of those Tier 2 areas are going to be shut down around that area. There won't be power in the valley.
Correct.
Just making sure that that's
Correct.
But
yeah. But I think the valley floor being Tier 1 is pretty consistent with what you see statewide. So as we go, if you go down here, obviously all the Central Valley is Tier 1. If you zoom in here, all the little valleys in the North Bay are Tier 1 as well. It's generally elevated terrain.
I just wanted our folks that live in the valley that Willits is down that understand that if that Tier 2 is shut down, most likely they're not going to have
Yes.
power.
If we do a PSPS for all lines going through all of these areas, which is not a guarantee, we're trying to be as targeted as we can. Yes, there's no way to bring power into Willits through these areas.
Thank you.
I see our Brook Trails Fire Chief is here. Do you have any questions? Or
No.
okay.
On your targeting of the high priorities for clearing potential threatening trees from the lines, I understand you'll probably be targeting the Tier 3 and Tier 2 first, but I see a tremendous number of lines in town and in the valley that have trees right in the, well, maybe those are the lower lines and they might be the high power lines.
I have a slide, I have a handout that we'll make sure to get to. It's called Know Your Overhead Lines, which none of us have ever had to think about this stuff before, but the high voltage lines are the ones we're addressing. So those are always at the top of the pole. So if you're like I am and you drive around like this now, you'll see a yellow sign that says high voltage. Everything above that is what we're talking about. So everything below that is usually either very low voltage lines or telecommunications lines that aren't addressed by.
So if those branches knock those lower lines down, it doesn't start fires?
Well, it depends what, that's quite a blanket statement.
Okay.
But usually those are telecom lines. The ones halfway up the pole are usually phone and cable.
All right.
Those do have a small charge to them, you'd have to ask them.
And I just want to say that this PowerPoint and any materials that you'd like to give me, we can post on our website, and so that people can access those and refer to this information.
And any contact information people should have, that would be important. So as we'd like to get it out to the press and to our community so they can better be prepared.
How long is it going to be out?
All right, hold on a second. So at this point, are you ready to take questions?
Sure.
Actually, can I just,
Go ahead.
one thing that we talked about, I wanted to really thank you and Allison for coming. The fire chief and I, Chris Wilkes, worked really hard to work with you and to bring you here, and I'm so happy. This is a great presentation. Some of the things that we talked about were some common sense things that the ordinary resident can do to prepare for power outages of up to 72 hours. And some of these things are obvious, but some things may not be. And I just sort of wanted to go through that checklist, and if you could sort of help us with a checklist that residents can use. I know personally things like keeping your car filled with gas, because your gas pumps are not going to be operable. I always carry power packs to plug my cell phone into that carry about 5 charges for a cell phone. It's always good to have those charged and ready, so you've got plenty of cell phone charge. Maybe you can continue that list for people.
Take your car out of the garage.
Know how to open your garage door without electricity.
Ice packs in the fridge. Battery-powered candles. Lanterns.
Cash, first aid supplies, hard copies of phone lists that are important to you. Sorry.
We have collateral. I suspect as part of this statewide campaign, this will be a big part of it, is being prepared personally for an outage. Medications in a cooler. Oxygen providers in town. A lesson learned, particularly in Lake County, that the oxygen providers down there did a great job of proactively doing, was when this was coming, they restocked all their customers with extra tanks. So that's a big one. Didn't even think of that, and they did that on their own. That was really good, best practice.
You ready to take questions from the public?
Absolutely.
All right. Back there first.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned about possible helping out like hospitals and say Safeway with generator type equipment if something happened. I was curious if you reach out to like the schools, because in our case we are a congregation area for people, but our food stores within our 4 schools rival Safeway at any given time. We need to feed several hundred people several times a day. If there's anything that you included that maybe in your reach out to like the generator issue. We couldn't possibly afford a generator big enough to power some of the stuff we got.
Yeah, this is a real pain point. There's no way. And so sending an individual generator to anywhere is nearly impossible to do. So what I had mentioned is we're working on this pilot program with these planned interconnection hubs. I don't remember what slide it's on. Where we're piloting a couple this year, and we hope to expand it, where you can get a little section of a downtown usually, or one of the pilots we're doing is in a small community, wooded community that has a gas station, a college, a fire station, and a market as part of the circuit that we know we can keep energized by rolling a generator to it. But there's some construction that needs to go into establishing that. So I don't have a good answer for you now.
No, that's fine,
yeah,
it's just a question.
Yeah.
So for the public, we shouldn't expect that here in Willits this season, is that
No.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Another question for?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take yours since you, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious, two comments. One is the Native American people up in Lake Mill told me that they knew not to camp by the rivers in the winter because the wind was so swift. And the roads now have taken the place of a lot of the open paths. And I'm concerned when I go over to the coast, which I do often, where the wires have been cut and you just have the plain poles with clearage of 50 feet on either side. The telephone poles are just left open for the wind to fly through. And I don't know if there's any way to secure those poles stable to where they won't blow over or snap. The older the poles get, the more, they're not like, I liked hearing what you said about the steel, or concrete or doing something. And is it solar panels or solar, is that an option that would, will that electrical off the grid power still be available? And the radio, I also wanted to talk about KZYX. Many of us rely upon the radio for notification of where the fires are, where the, weather conditions. And if the radio is off, if you don't have electricity, and you don't have, so part of the program for helping would be to have battery operated radios, or to have solar, the wind up kind that are, that would be a good safety measure that you didn't mention. And water.
That's
water.
on there.
We have
Water.
How much water do we need? Morgan, who's on the planning department, they do have safety generators backup generators for the water in town, thank you. That's a relief, but water is critical if you have animals, you know, for any, you know, any strong period of time filling up your bathtub.
All right, Randy, I'm going to have him answer.
Okay, well, I'd like to know about the wind.
I wrote them down. Those were all good call-outs. So the system hardening is what I've mentioned, going through the system in high fire threat areas and prescribing a way to harden them. All the wood poles that are out there now are designed to withstand up to 50 miles an hour or so. But there are areas, and you said the wind tunnels, that's another reason why you need more weather stations, right? The network as it is now, you don't have visibility into those little canyons where the wind screams down. So we're trying to get a weather station in all of those areas so that we can see exactly what's happening. And then you have the solar. So solar, if you just have panels on your roof with no battery storage, you're connected to the grid just as you would be taking grid power. So you would be affected by the outage as well. If you had a battery, so there are now battery storage being rolled out by a lot of solar companies, you would be able to isolate yourself from the grid if you had solar plus a battery. And that's something that if you have the means and the inclination, that would be a good way to make yourself more resilient.
You got a question back there?
I have a two-part question. Number one, is the only substation on Center Valley Road here in the Willits area? Or are you aware of more than that one? And does that energize the whole city and the valley? And once you answer that, I'll ask the second part.
I can't say I know our system well enough to answer that definitively.
I don't either, and
Okay, the second part is, if that is a substation that powers the whole city and the valley, can a generation unit be put there so that the areas that are out of tier 2 and 3 be energized? And the reason is, I live in the valley, and I pump my own water, and I also have medical supplies that, and I wasn't aware of the number or the group in PG&E that deals with people that has medical supplies that run on electricity. So it's important to me, if we could really help this town be isolated with our own power, if you can make sure your main lines are clear, or that you could provide power at the substation generation for this town and the valley. Because we have no water in the valley, we don't have city water.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
And we got animals out there too, it's farmland, it's ag land.
I don't know the answer to your question. But I would say, if you're not on the medical baseline rate, please sign up for that.
Maybe I could reach out to the city manager with an answer to your question, or
Sure.
if you could give me an email, reach out to you.
Sure.
Is it, can I just clarify, is it technically possible to do that? If, you know, if we collectively could afford a generator big enough to do it, is it technically possible to run just that substations? That would be huge.
Technically, you can generate a substation.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Can you generate 50 substations? No, probably not right now. Which in a scenario where you would be out, that would be what we're looking at. So we're always looking at, as this continues and rolls out, we're going to be better at this year than we were next year. Last year, and we're going to be better next year, hopefully, as will the community. This is going to be a work in progress.
I know this is a rural area, and there are a lot of people I know that have generators or contemplating getting generators. Any cautions that they should have for your people?
You are law enforcement. Yes, please have an electrician install your generator, a licensed electrician. Make sure it's installed properly. We do not want, and that is a hazard of this program potentially, is improperly installed generators backfeeding onto the system and possibly starting an ignition that way, but also endangering our crews.
Will those be tips maybe that you could provide, maybe not just us, but the world? Because I know that there are ways, like if I have a generator and just plug my refrigerator in it and not actually plug it into my house, probably not going to affect you guys. Versus if I jury rig it into my lines at home, it might energize your pole and kill your guy while he's outside thinking he's in a de-energized line. So.
Correct. Thank you.
So.
we'll look at what we have on generators.
All right.
That should be part of the campaign.
And
So you said 72 hours is what you expect to be the maximum amount of time. But if the weather conditions persist for a few days, could feasibly then do almost a week of keeping it up?
Anything is possible there, yes. We have to wait until the weather has subsided, obviously, before we start the restoration. So, as I said, our internal goal is 24 to 48 hours once we begin the restoration. So you've got your weather conditions in front of that, and then if we've got significant damage that takes a long time to repair, you can stretch it on the back end, but that's our goal.
Okay. And then the representative from Sonoma Wind Power said that that energy forum recently, the PG&E customers should expect their rates to go up significantly because of distribution costs because of all the new safety measures. Is that accurate?
Well, we have several proceedings at the CPUC right now on what this work is, getting it approved, and how to pay for it. And that all runs through our regulator on how rates are set.
Brian, will you leave your contact info with the city manager later on, so if I have questions personally, I can get a hold of you guys?
Of course.
Is that right? Thank you. Oh, I got a gentleman back.
Is there a copy of the presentation we can get?
Absolutely.
I will post it on the website, on our website.
So, well, I was just thinking, I know that you've got information coming out. We know how important education preparedness is, and a lot of families or even seniors get their information from a source. For the families, it's generally the schools. Maybe for seniors, it's from the senior center. And when you're preparing for an earthquake, there's usually a checklist. It's pretty simple for people to go through and say, hey, do I have all these things? Can we expect that we're going to see something in the mail from PG&E before fire season gets here, or is this something that's going to take much longer to roll out?
I think that'll be part of this statewide campaign. We have a lot of materials available now on the website.
Before this coming fall fires?
Yes.
Summer, fall?
Yes.
Okay.
There will be a mass.
Checklist, yeah.
Okay.
At least, well, there will be mailing, there will be ads, there will be everything, yeah.
And when all of these people go and give their correct contact information on the website, they'll see a lot of this information on there too.
Are people who are PG&E paying customers already on your list, or does everybody have to opt in some?
We have some contact information for everybody. Most of it, not most of it, a lot of it is not how people would like to be informed. So we have a lot of landlines, for instance. Sometimes we just have name and address.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of cell phones. We were able to sign up about 100,000 people last year to update their information just with our campaign in the Tier 3, which was pretty good. But now it's going out to everybody, so we're hoping a big push for that. You can definitely help us there.
Can you guarantee privacy for people in this community who may be wary of giving personal information like cell phone numbers?
Yes, there are very strict privacy laws for customer information. And in fact, thanks for mentioning it, that has been a challenge in coordinating with local governments, is sharing of vulnerable populations and where a lot of our first responders want to know where they are. And that's been an ongoing challenge because of the strict privacy laws. So in a way that is good, in a way it creates challenges, but it's very strict.
Last call for anybody from the public that wants to ask Brian questions. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Oh,
Well, that's not a question. Mr. Mayor and Council, I just wanted to take the opportunity. Back in October of 17, when we had the Redwood Complex, we identified problems and some key issues for us locally during our post-incident analysis, and one of those was communication. And in this process, we've been doing everything we could to bring information back to the community. I really want to take the opportunity to thank Allison and Brian, such as the city manager did. Originally, this presentation was going to be given in a central location, which would have been in Ukiah. Allison reached out to us. We said, no, we want to hear. We want to hear in Willits. We have a lot of Tier 3 and a lot of Tier 2 in our area. And I gathered that it wasn't real popular maybe for her supervisors, but she made it work. and they're here now today. And the idea was to bring the information, bring the presentation, get the kind of the juices flowing for what's coming and what's out there. I love to hear that there's more public outreach coming, but the local group, Allison and Brian, and there were some others that met with staff, the public outreach personnel, it's been fantastic. And I think that they've really fought hard to be here tonight, and it should be recognized that information is coming out. And you know, the fire district, of course I'm speaking for the fire district, but in the city, we've tried to keep those promises to the public to make sure that communication happens before we have another incident such as the Redwood Complex. So anyway, thank you for making that work for us.
Can I add one more thing? You reminded me. We are doing a series of open houses throughout the service territory as part of this outreach. There will be one here. We had to reschedule the original date, but there will be one right there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
That's great.
All right, everybody. We are now, we have no ordinances to enact, so we're at item 5, consent calendar. On our consent calendar are our April 10th council meeting minutes. Item B is a resolution authorizing Willits Frontier Days route for July 4th, and decorations on PG&E poles. Item C is authorize city manager to finalize and execute a settlement agreement and general release for Catherine Masiello. Item D is to authorize for the purchase of a new utility vehicle replacement for the wastewater treatment facility in the amount of $15,971.34 from Motosports of Ukiah. Would anybody like anything pulled?
I just wanted to make sure that I left a couple of sort of typographical and clarifications on the minutes on Kathy's phone and make sure those are included. There was.
We will note those, thank you.
Okay, so
Appreciate that.
we just assume those are made.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes, Kathy's couldn't be here today because she's been sick all week.
Oh.
I gave her my cold that I brought back from Texas. But Dolores is here taking her place, but we will make sure those minutes are corrected. Thank you.
So,
Right?
I had one comment about your consent calendar. On the settlement agreement and general release document, paragraph 11 was inadvertently left in and needs to be deleted. That's a paragraph that says that this agreement is confidential and may not be disclosed, and here it is a public document. So we're going to eliminate paragraph 11 and we sign it.
What? It's not confidential? All right.
so I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second it. Oh, Larry seconds? Okay. You beat your Sabrina. It's all right. And this is got some money involved here, so I think we need a roll call vote.
Councilmember
Connie.
Connie. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Strong.
Yes.
Stranske.
Yes.
And Mayor Gonzalez.
Yes. All right. Information reports, and now right to appeal. Persons who are dissatisfied with the decisions of the city council may have the right to a review of that decision by a court. The city has adopted section 1094.6 of the Code of Civil Procedure, which generally limits to 90 days the time within which the decisions of the city boards and agencies may be judicially challenged. All right, commissions and agencies, authorities. The Willits Council, City Council meets concurrently as the Willits Planning Commission and the City of Willits Successor Agency, and we've got no business there. So item 9, city manager reports and recommendations.
Music in the Park is this Sunday. I want to remind everybody, it goes from noon to, it probably will go past 6 p.m. tonight. Very excited about this lineup. It's a festival-style lineup. In the fall, we had a Music in the Park that was every Thursday for 4 consecutive weeks. For spring, we decided to do a festival day and have 4 summer bands coming on Sunday. I know we have a lot of people coming from out of town to watch these bands. They're pretty big draws. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Nuestra Alianza de Willits was a sponsor, and they will probably be selling tamales, so you don't want to miss that. We also have Canna Park, Vegan Buddha Organic Flowers, Emerald City, Dogwood, Modular Processing Systems are all sponsors of this event, and we'd like to thank those folks for generously contributing to this. Our vendors will include Monkey Wrench, who's going to be having a booth there, as well as our tie-dye store on South Main. I believe they're called Good Vibes. And they're also going to be selling shaved ice. Food will, at the Octagon, will be provided by the Willits football team, Go Wolverines, and that's a fundraiser for the football team. Taqueria Ramirez will be there with his food truck, and it should be a good time. Hope to see you all there. It's supposed to be a beautiful day. Some of the other things that are going on, we've got Scott Herman here from the Water Department, and I don't know whether he was going to announce this, but we have been having flushing throughout the city. That is still going on. It will continue to go on throughout the city. We also are looking at an agreement with Farmers Market. Farmers Market is now going to be moving outdoors again for the summer, and that's going to start in May, and they're going to be on West Mendocino Street. We're going to close West Mendocino from Main Street to the alleyway, and they're going to be operating there, and they're very happy to be there. And we knocked on doors and met with businesses, and everyone seemed to be in agreement that that's a good spot.
All right.
The only other thing I have is a report from our police department. Had a press release today that was sent to everyone. On Friday, April 19th, the Willis Police Department officer stopped a subject who had a warrant for his arrest. They arrested him and found a half a pound of methamphetamine. So congratulations to our police department. It was wonderful to get that off the street, and I really thank you for your work. And that's all I have.
All right. I guess now we are.
Is there a question in the audience?
Just a quick question, the farmers market hours? Catch it?
They will be there from, I believe it's 3 to 6 every Thursday.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh, I would, what is the schedule on getting the red zones painted on Main Street?
Well, we have Bill Wilson here who could perhaps fill us in on that piece of information. And he is our public works superintendent. I know he's been trying to find time, and now that the weather is clear.
But isn't that Caltrans?
No.
No. Okay.
Right now, we're preparing the streets, we're getting ready to start preparing for the pavement work. And after that, we're hoping we have a few months to get all the red curbs throughout town, not just Main Street, ready for the 4th of July and other things. So, it's on the list. We'll be working on it as soon as we can.
No, we were waiting for the good weather, and now it looks like it's upon us. So, all right. Item 10, discussion and possible adoption of a resolution establishing fiscal year 2019-20 project list to receive state funding from SB1 local streets and roads. Andrea.
Hi, Andrea Trincato Slater, project manager, and I'm here tonight to recommend the adoption of a resolution establishing a project list for SB1 Local Streets and Roads Program for fiscal year 19-20. The Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017 established funding for 8 transportation programs across the state. Of those 8, the city is qualified to receive funds from 2 of the programs, the Local Streets and Roads Program and the Local Partnership Program. These programs have different requirements, and in order to receive funding from the Local Streets and Roads Program, the city has to adopt a project list and submit it to the state by May 1st, 2019. Funding from the Local Streets and Roads Program is based on revenue collected from gas sales. So at this point, every year they project how much money will be received by the city. This year the projection is $84,817. And staff proposes the following projects for fiscal year 19-20. The annual striping program. We do this program every year. We started it several years ago where we are trying to address roughly a fifth of town a year with remarking the traffic striping to make the road safer. The Creekside Road Stabilization Project. Creekside has, there's a section of the south side of the street that has subsided, and we want to repair that. And really with those two projects, we believe that will probably take most of the funding. However, we included a couple of other eligible expenses just to create some flexibility, because things come up out in the course of the year, and we may be able to use some funding to cover other expenses. So those other expenses we included in this project list are the Main Street no parking zones. We wanted to look at whether we could pay for some of the expenses to install signage and paint the curbs red, either with the Public Works crew or possibly outsourcing that. And maintenance of our survey equipment, which is also an eligible expense. Our survey equipment is roughly 12 years old. It's really getting up there, and there's some unpredictability as to, you know, whether we're going to have failures through the years, and when we have to go to get it repaired, it can be pretty costly. So that's our project list for fiscal year 1920, and just wanted to ask you if there's any questions.
No, it's pretty complete.
Yeah. Hey, Larry, any questions? All right, I guess I'll put it out to the public now. Anybody have questions regarding our project list?
So move.
Did you have?
Regarding the paving.
This is not paving. This is, there is a little bit of paving as a part of Creekside Road stabilization, but it's really to
Stabilize the road.
to repair a section of road. This is mainly a traffic striping program that we're planning to do.
I'll second Larry's
All
motion.
right. Motion and a second. Any other further discussion up here?
Thank you for that.
Yes, and,
All right.
I'm sorry.
No.
I have more to report, but I wasn't sure.
Let's get through this and then I'll let you finish up.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so roll call there?
Councilmember Connie?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Strong?
Yes?
Stranske?
Yes.
And Mayor Gonzalez?
Yes. Take it away.
I just wanted to provide an update to council on our summer plans. So we've been working on plans for this construction season, and right now what we have going is we have the slurry sealing project, which is called the Pavement Preservation Project. This is the project that the local partnership program, which is also an SB1 program, is paying about half of the expenses for. So we're slurry sealing several streets in town. The slurry sealing will take place on Thursday, May 30th, and Friday, May 31st. That's the plan right now. There are going to be some road closures, and we will update the community and put out a press release roughly 2 weeks in advance to prepare the community. We have been working with community facilities. One of the affected areas, or one of the affected facilities, is the Northbrook Nursing Home. And we're working with them to try and maintain access through this. Obviously with road closures, it's disruptive, but there are certain critical facilities that we need to maintain access to. So we're working with the community on that. The annual striping project for this fiscal year's funding, 18-19, we'll be doing that before June 30th. Blosser drainage project, which was held over from last year because of there was like a parts delay. So we'll start that after school begins. Ends, yes. when summer break starts. And we're hoping it'll be immediately after. The East Valley guardrail, I'm sure you've all noticed that the guardrail has been damaged for some time. We've been working on getting a contractor in place. We have a contract in place now, and we're just trying to schedule the work. The North Maple Storm Drain project is currently out to bid, and the project is scheduled to begin in early summer. Maple Pump Station will happen in August. The flood emergency plan, they're going to be flying an aerial, and consultants will be working on the plan. It's underway. The Pine and Vicinity Utility Project, we're working on getting the plans and specifications ready for bid. We're expecting that project to begin mid-August. And there's a slip-out repair up at the water treatment plant. That's scheduled for September. And the Arts Center ADA parking is nearly complete. They'll come back through. They paved it today, and they'll come back through and stripe it in about a week. So that's a pretty busy schedule for us for summertime, and so we're going to be out there inspecting all these jobs, and just wanted to let you guys know what we were planning.
So the slurry seal, is that a contractor that comes in and so you have to kind of time it down?
Yeah, it's they basically have to put like a blanket down, and in order to get a good product, we really need to close roads and ask residents to either stay home or stay away from the area for a period of time. The contractor will, of course, let in emergency vehicles, but that will damage the finish and we'll have to repair it. So, yeah.
How long of a period?
They're projecting probably an 8-hour period, but I think it can be used in less time. It's just that with slurry seal, you want it to cure as long as possible to get a good product.
So people can walk and park their vehicle, block or
Yeah.
two away and walk to them.
Yeah, so it's going to be, a community effort really in some of these areas, but it's a very short project. I know when you're inconvenienced, it feels like a long time, but they're going to complete, I believe it's roughly 8 roads in 2 days.
That's great.
And the restriping, will that also do some of that plastic sort of striping also as part of that, or just paint?
For the striping project or the
Yeah.
slurry?
No, the
Because the
striping.
slurry seal project will actually replace traffic markings on the roads.
Yeah,
that
so you
are
have to
affected.
redo that one, but as far as
Yeah.
the striping, is that doing other striping also besides the slurry seal areas?
Yes, we're going to be striping, it's
Like
roughly a
the
fifth
stop-
of town.
The stop curve?
Stop bars,
Yeah.
replacing all of the traffic markings on the streets that we have.
I can't remember, what's that reflective?
Thermoplast.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm trying-
thermoplastic, yeah.
Thank you. So there'll be some of that then. Because I know it's worn out in a lot of places.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we started this annual striping project, and we're just trying to get the town on a regular rotation so we can stay on top of it.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you for the update.
All right. Do we have any other, let's see, any other departments? Public safety, they're gone, so about community development?
I got some.
Go ahead.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Gonzalez. Christopher Morgan, building official. Just wanted to bring to you guys' attention, and Chris has already got it, I want to steal his thunder. The little house behind the fire department, apparently it got purchased. They're on Humboldt, and it's going to be moved. They've got a permit from my office already to have permission to move the house, but they're going to have to obtain the necessary permits from the state to be able to go down Main Street. It's going to end up at 266 North Main. And so just when that starts happening, you guys might be fielding phone calls and stuff, so I just want you to be aware. It has to be moved out of there by June 1st.
Cool.
So,
Chris, I have another question.
Sure.
Actually, since the other Chris left too, that I know that you guys work with the fire department regarding
Yes.
the abatements on the grass.
yes.
Where are we, you guys starting on that now, or is that coming up yet?
We have not started on that, but that is something, and I'm glad you reminded me, because that's something that's going to become an issue very soon. Speaking of which, since the rain has finally stopped, I'm hoping that folks will be more willing to get out there and take care of the code violations. I've got a lot of letters out there currently, and you folks know that those take time. But since we have nicer weather, I'm suspecting that we get some good cooperation from the public. And I'm very easy to work with, and hopefully that we'll get some good compliance in that area. Right now, getting a lot of building permits from our residential crowd, mostly re-roofs, and folks are wanting to fix up their houses, so getting a lot of permit activity since the weather's improving.
Thank you, sir.
Other than that, that's it.
Dusty, did you have something?
Well, I have a question. I'm not sure if it's Dusty's or whose, but the conditional use permit property over there near the medical center that everybody got kind of concerned about what they were going to do. Have they got a business license now, and has it been specified what they're doing there?
Oh, okay, you're referring to the Life Ray property.
Yes, I never
Yeah,
think of the
Nancy
name.
Hutchinson there.
It's
No, they have not come in for a business license yet. They're had some issues with construction of the building, and so it may be some time before we expect a business license to come in.
Probably let them know they're going to be taking it down.
Yeah, due to some construction issues, they're actually going to have to take that building down and replace it.
Oh. The one that they just built.
You don't need to go.
The insulation that was used was very corrosive, and so it destroyed the warranty on the building.
I think there's some discussions between the owner and the contractor, so let's probably just stay out of that.
Right.
Yeah, we believe it's a warranty issue. So.
Yeah, maybe so.
Will that happen soon?
So it's going to be a while before they are ready.
That's my expectation. Although they can always come in for a business license even prior to the structure being built. Obviously, any business license would be approved would be conditioned on them having a proper space and occupancy. And I know that's of high interest to the council, and so if we do see any updates on that property, we'll be sure to share that with the council. Yeah.
I always, people ask me.
Yeah.
Question for Chris. If a property owner lets their lot go, aside from tall grass, is there an ordinance, let's say that they're letting it overgrow with blackberry bushes or anything
Oh, yeah.
else? Is it only grass, or is it just any kind of vegetation?
Well, I think Dusty would probably know that section of the ordinance better, but I believe that the grass is involved there as well. I don't know what the maximum height is on grass, but any type of vegetation like blackberry bushes, those create fire hazards. I would have to read the ordinance more closely to see how tall grass can be. I honestly don't know. I use common sense a lot, and I know you can't really enforce that in the ordinance, but I don't want to see 2-foot tall grass. You have rakes and little kids step on and things like that. So I don't have an answer for how tall grass can be. Maybe you know.
No, I'd have to look at the other one off the top of my head.
The main concern for public works is the corners where cars are driving by and seeing further visibility at this point. Fences are 3 feet.
Yeah. 3 feet if they're solid.
If we're coming up on an intersection of any type and we can't see going either direction, that has to be cleared out.
So Bill, do you send a letter, or does Chris send a letter to those
Go to
residents?
Chris.
I do, and if they don't take care of it, we have other measures.
Same thing with trees hanging over the sidewalks, anything 14 foot. It has to be at least above 14 foot, but at that point, with all that weight, you're looking at problems, hazards and other things, so. there's lots of little things we find out there.
Stilts for the goats, right? All right, thank you. Trustee, are you back on?
Can I say something to Bill before he leaves? I just wanted to say thank you to the Public Works crew for the excellent job on the dog park this year. I've had so many people come into the Book Juggler who are regular dog park users who say it looks better than it ever has, and sincere thanks. So, yeah.
Yeah, our Public Works crew and our engineering crew are especially busy. Our engineering department's taken on more projects than they typically have. And so we all appreciate the work that they're getting done. Just a few things. I want to remind the council that May has the potential to be an extra good month for the city. That's when we find out whether or not our CAL FIRE Urban Forestry Management Program grant got funded. That's the $256,000 for the street trees and the urban forestry management plan. So keep your fingers crossed on that. May is also the first opportunity for us to request release of funds from the CTC, California Transportation Commission, for our Rails with Trails project. We're anxious to get started on that, and the first phase of that project will be the environmental work, which we anticipate taking somewhere between a little over a year to 2 years. We also are looking at competing with Prop 68 grant funds through the California Department of Parks and Recreation. This is a grant that aims to support new recreational opportunities in the city of Willits. We had a discussion at our Revite Ed meeting yesterday about some potential project ideas. And I think based on that conversation, we're wanting to focus on the recreational facilities off of commercial streets. So that's our soccer fields and our ball fields. So there were some interesting ideas that came to fruition or came to shape at that meeting. And so staff's looking forward on putting together a proposal. I think whatever we do sort of settle on, we'll bring to the council for your potential support before releasing that. But that's a grant that's due in August. Also at Revite Ed, we were able to talk more about signage, and I'm really thankful to the Revite Ed group because we were able to settle on some recommendations on priorities for installing signage. We have a budget meeting coming up soon, so anticipate hearing the recommendations from Revite Ed on potentially funding some signage ideas. We also recognize that some ideas had a better chance of being potentially getting funding from the community, and so we'll not just be looking for the council and the city to pay for some of these. We're going to look for the community to assist us as well. And again, this is all signage that we're looking that would benefit the local economy here in Willits. So yeah, unless the council has any questions.
Oh,
Just the signage, is that part of the, oh, no, I blanked. When we worked on the Rexall building and they did a city plan, the contractors came in, had several charrettes, and they came up with a plan.
The signage that we're talking about at Revite Ed is highway signage that would indicate downtown Willits. So it's the regular green highway signs.
On
101, and then also once you get off the freeway,
On to
indicate
20.
directional to 20, and then coming across 20, coming to town, saying downtown that way. So a number of downtown highway signs. And then additionally, we've been talking about place finding signs, which are those posts that have multiple, theater this way,
Right.
restaurants, shops. And we're talking about locations in town for those. And those were the ones Dusty mentioned will hopefully be financed by local businesses and the business community.
Thank you.
thank you. Human Resources? Oh, okay, and Administration? Nothing, all right. Well, and Public Works? You're here, Bill, anything else?
Airport Day is August 17th. Just going to throw that in there. We got approved for a flyover from the military, which is going to be pretty cool. So, other than that, Public Works, we got lots to do. So,
All right.
plugging away.
Okay, City Council Committee Boards and Agency Reports.
attended a meeting in Ukiah, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, with Caltrans and Granite. We are on the, he and I are on the Caltrans ad hoc committee. The meeting was a kickoff for this year's segment of the Sherwood Road intersection project. So Caltrans and Granite were working on what they call partnering, and basically they were hashing out the details of who to call when things go wrong. And so there was an escalation chain of who to contact in the field, and then at higher up levels when inevitable problems arise. It was a very good meeting for us to attend. We were able to insert our city manager's name at level 5 of problems, so that when timing becomes an issue and the project slows down, the city will get a heads up so that we can let the community know if there are problems that are significant. Otherwise, it was a good meeting. Well, happy to be there. Jeremy Rocco was with us from the engineering department, and it was just good to have the city included in that level of discussion. And then yesterday we had the Revive Ed committee that Dusty mentioned, and we discussed primarily signage and did some brainstorming on that grant issue, and did some discussion about economic development for the community and how we can keep our economy growing and pull us out of the rough times that some Willits businesses are experiencing.
The thing that I thought was interesting about the meeting with Caltrans and Granite was the length of time it's going to take to do the job. And everybody's going to have to be real patient. That's going to be a real thing to form all of the people that come down from Brook Trails. And they're estimating about for November for it to be complete, and that's after school has started. So they realize that there's going to be more traffic after school starts, and they're going to try to wait as far as they can to get started on it. So that was something that was very interesting to me, and I'm sure to Greta also, that the time factor and how they're going to do it. And I've heard through the grapevine that there's different things that they're thinking about doing, but that didn't come up at the meeting.
Larry and Greta, I know that early on they were working at night. Are they going to go back to working at night now that
They're doing some of that now, and they're trying to find creative ways to do as much of the work early on in the project as possible. So initially, they have to redo the sidewalk in front of that Quick Mart, oh, it's not Quick Mart, Village Mart, there on the corner. That was supposed to be at the very end of the project, and they're actually doing that now. So if you've driven by the intersection, you see that they have those, I call them cattle corridors, you know, where the new sidewalk. So they're doing that now as opposed to at the end of the project, in the hopes that it's one more thing that gets done, so it doesn't, you know, pull the project longer. But they are doing some of the night work, and some of it they just won't be able to do at night. So they're very cognizant of the fact that it's going to have a huge impact on Willits and Brook Trails traffic, and they want to do the job safely and quickly. But we're all just, like Larry said, going to have to be patient.
I know as city pool season starts up, that might be a pain for folks to get to the north end there.
It's going to be a rough summer, but it's going to be great when it's done.
All right. Any other committees reports?
No, I just have Revive Ed, and I think we've got a complete report there.
Okay.
A couple things. EDFC, Economic Development and Financing Corporation, is continuing to tighten their processes and their budgeting, and things are pretty much on track, although there have been a few businesses that are having trouble paying back their loans, but in general they're tightening the ship. And they moved from where they were with West Company, and now they're right next door to the Community Foundation in Ukiah. Nice little spot there, so they're happy with that. And EDFC is going to have a kind of retreat 3-hour meeting on the coast May 23rd, so that we're going to try to look more long range, developing our strategies and so forth. So the other meeting that was very interesting, I'm going to take a few minutes on, is the Mendocino Solid Waste Management Authority, also known as Mendo Recycle. We met on April 18th, and couple of things are kind of minor, which is like there's a bill in Sacramento that is going to affect how much waste has to be diverted to organic waste and not go to the landfill by January 22nd, 22, I'm sorry, January of 2022. And so that's going to be discussed at our next meeting. Budget looks on track. A couple of our personnel are stepping up the amount of work and sort of the level of work they're doing while we don't have a general manager. So we're going to be looking at adjusting the budget to make sure they're actually compensated for this work that they're doing. There also was one fairly interesting applicant for the general manager position. The county is the personnel review of that, but we developed an ad hoc committee of MSWA to make sure that that gets pursued and looked into whether that person is an appropriate potential general manager. The next meeting is going to be May 23rd here, 10 o'clock. But the really big items that are on our plate right now is a proposed revision to our bylaws, or it's the JPA. It's the general JPA's Joint Powers Agreement for all of the jurisdictions in the county that comprise the MSWA board. And the current JPA agreement was dated 1990, so it's kind of out of date. The Ukiah staff, Tim Erickson and Emmett Jones, who are, I think Emmett is on contract via Ukiah, they on their own have basically developed a draft new JPA. Among the questions in there that they want us, all of the jurisdictions to consider are whether we want to have a staff or a contract general. I think we all agree there needs to be some kind of general manager. It may not be a full-time position, and it may. And that depends on what the duties are. Among the duties that Ukiah doesn't really want rate review to their jurisdiction. They aren't recommending that be one of the things that MSWA deals with, which has in the past, at least informally, been something MSWA has helped. And Fort Bragg and Willits both want that service. We want to have the expertise of a county-wide waste management person to advise us on our contract with our waste hauler, and so does Fort Bragg. So these are questions that are coming up as part of this draft JPA agreement. The prior agreement in 1990 was really focused on running a landfill for the whole county, for all of the jurisdictions. What the new proposal would be really focused on the need to meet recycling goals that are mandated, and also hazardous waste and deal with illegal dump sites. So those are fairly big changes in the focus of the JPA. At the same time, this sort of has to precede working on the possibility of contracting with C&S, which is the private hauler that does the counties and the Ukiah's waste hauling. Not all the county, but some of the county, but also Ukiah. They have proposed to take over a lot of the waste hauling duties that the JPA has been doing. And they would basically be running the yard in Ukiah, the disposal yard. Another question about that is they want to own it, and most of the JPA board members say, no, we want to continue to own that, because if the private contracting doesn't go well, we want to make sure we have the option. So I just would like to put that out, that these are big decisions. I am not an expert, but I am becoming more knowledgeable than I used to be. I would love any thoughts and concerns that our council or our public has about this, the private contracting and the shift in priorities of the JPA agreement. Anyone wants to get more information? I spilled a drink on my copy of the contract, but I can get another copy, and I would be happy to share it with anybody.
Is that available electronically, or?
I'm sure it is, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'd be interested in just to look at it. I know that, over the years, it's been a good service to our city manager when it comes to looking at that, as far as the help we get.
It's really vital. For a city as small as ours, we don't have any in-house assistance on how to review rates, garbage rates, and sort of the niceties of a negotiation with a waste hauler. Other cities who are larger usually have some expertise on staff. We don't. So we really relied on the general manager of MSWA to help us out on that. And they were the ones who checked the contract and sort of checked things. And it really is important to us. Having to hire a private contractor to do that duty would be very expensive for a city as small as we are. So it's a real value for us to have that. And that's why I'm continuing to, the city managers have met, and we're talking a lot about this issue. And Fort Bragg and I are just in there saying, no, we want this. So we're fighting for it, for that.
I just want you to know that those on the board who are not wanting that service have suggested that Fort Bragg, Willits, and there's one more.
Point Arena?
It might be Point Arena, but I think they're, well, anyway, that they should, this is their suggestion, not mine, but they could pool and hire the same contractor to do that review for them. That wouldn't necessarily be covered then under the JPA agreement, because some of the JPA people don't want that.
And I would, and my problem with that is that would increase the cost for Willits. While the change in the contract would actually decrease the cost for Ukiah, and because they don't use those services, and it would actually increase services for them, because this hauler would do additional services for the city of Ukiah that we don't need, but we would lose these services and would have to contract out. It would represent a significant additional cost to us, so I am continuing to be against that.
I am too.
And I know part of the issue is that while Emmett is their guy in our jurisdiction, Emmett is Jerry Ward's guy.
Yes,
I know.
So he can't really be our guy.
He can't be our guy.
He has, admitted that he wears different hats and he's on both sides of the table at different times.
Yeah, no, we need someone neutral.
Which doesn't sit really well with me, because, I don't know which side of the table he's on at any given moment. And he's very knowledgeable, but who's he advocating for?
Waste hauling is a very complicated, regulated subject, and I've been involved in negotiations for waste hauling for much larger cities, and when we contract with, they're very particular companies, there's only a couple of them, they're extremely expensive, they're hundreds of dollars an hour to consult with those people, and they say, oh, you can just contract. I've contracted with those people, I know how much they cost, and it's really not fair for a city as small as Willits to have to do that. So I'm continuing to try to push for them to get somebody on staff that can help us out when we need it.
Yeah, that's really, to my mind, also very important that there be a public representative, that the JPA, is answerable to the JPA, who is an advocate for the ratepayers, because otherwise this becomes very kind of
Incestuous?
Yeah, a little bit incestuous, because the race haulers have a lot of, a lot of influence on what.
It's a very complicated, the way they structure rates, it's very complicated.
And with CNS potentially becoming a private contractor handling a lot of what the JPA has been doing, that risks losing that public oversight role. So thank you for your input on that.
Right.
It's going to be a tight vote on the Actually, I think that the revision of the JPA agreement has to go back to all of the jurisdictions. So if it really doesn't look good for us, I don't know what will happen, but it does have to be approved by the members. It's going to take many months before we're there.
Matt, you have anything else, or is that it?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, at this point, any other council member reports or recommendations? Any good welfare?
Next month, May, is Bike Month, National Bike Month, and Walk and Bike Mendocino will be hosting a couple of events in Willits, including Bike to Work Day. I wanted to take that opportunity to remind folks that you should not be riding your bicycle on the sidewalks downtown. We have bike lanes now. So please use the bike lanes. Willits PD has been stopping some folks when they see them riding on the sidewalks. They're not issuing tickets, but they are giving you a reminder that it's time to use the bike lanes. So that's my little plug.
Good.
Walk and Bike Mendocino had asked to do some bike safety presentations. Will they be doing that as well?
They're going to do one, they have one scheduled right now for Ukiah, but they will be doing the same program here in Willits. They're not sure exactly the timing on it yet. It will be sometime this summer. And they will also have a pedestrian safety class geared especially towards seniors, and I believe that will be offered at the Willits Senior Center.
You know, just kind of a thing out there, I know it's not required for adults, but man, you should wear a helmet, even as an adult.
Yeah.
The life you save may be your own.
Yes. Brains matter.
Do we have any other good welfare? I'll throw out there, I think the Education Foundation is doing another, I think they're doing a no, it's not the Education Foundation, it's the Sober Grad is doing a tri-tip dinner next week. No, it's next week, Friday. So it's another drive-through one up at the high school. So keep that in mind. All right. And we have no closed session?
Nope.
So I'll take a motion to adjourn and we'll call it a night.
So be it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.